From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Somewhere in America, a city comes to life. It moves effortlessly, breathes easily. It flows with clean water. It makes its skyline greener and its population healthier. All to become the kind of city people want to live and work in. Somewhere in America, we've already answered some of the nation's toughest questions. And the over 60,000 people of Siemens are ready to do it again. Siemens answers.
How does an investment manager stand the test of time? By taking a long view through all market cycles and keeping a close eye on risk. Franklin Templeton Investments, a solid approach to investing for over 60 years. Gain from our perspective.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
Issue 1, Obama's New York setback.
It is people like me who got off their couch and said, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
That's Republican Bob Turner, a retired cable television executive. He's the newest member of the U.S. House. In a special election this week, Republican Turner defeated Democratic New York State Assemblyman David Weprin of the Jewish faith by 8 points. 54-46. Turner will now take the seat once held by resigned New York Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Weiner's seat had been held by Democrats for more than 90 years. It was also a district that went big for President Obama, 55%. A Republican and a Catholic. Turner's win was a referendum on Mr. Obama, many believe. Jewish voters in the Turner district, traditionally Democratic, overwhelmingly disapprove of fellow Democrat Barack Obama. They particularly are offended by what they see as bad policies and anti-Israel rhetoric. And get this, former New York City Mayor Ed Koch, a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, crossed party lines and supported Republican Turner.
President Obama is a nice guy, and I like him, and I helped elect him, and all of those things. He threw Israel under the bus.
Koch sees the Turner win as proof positive of President Obama's mishandling of the U.S.-Israel relationship.
Question, is Ed Koch right? Has President Obama thrown Israel under the bus, Pat Buchanan?
No, he hasn't really, John. There's no doubt he's distanced himself from Netanyahu. He's been critical of Netanyahu and the settlements and things. And Netanyahu does not like Obama, and he moves very close to the Republicans. But in this district, John, which is important, not only Ed Koch, and there's an Orthodox Jewish community there, the New York Post and the New York Daily News endorsed Turner. This is really, in a way, an anti-Obama vote, I think, really sending him a message out there. And it's a tremendous victory for Republicans. And what it says to Democratic Senate candidates and others is, look, the President of the United States may be a real anchor, an albatross for you in your election. You better separate yourself from him. It's a terrific win for the Republicans. It's a bad defeat for the Democrats and a very bad message.
Why did Koch say what he said?
Well, he said it because many in the Jewish community feel that Obama is unsympathetic to Israel in a way that, for example, George W. Bush was not. He was on all fours with Ariel Sharon. And that Obama is not sympathetic to Israel in the way that others are.
Is Turner sympathetic to Israel?
Oh, now he's very, I don't know where he was, but he is now.
Sign me up.
President Obama has tried to adjust the relationship more like President Bush's father, George H.W. Bush. He's tried to get peace talks going. They haven't succeeded, but the UN is about to vote on whether to approve of a Palestinian state, and the U.S. vote will be against that, one of the few votes in the world. So I don't think you can say that this president is turning his back on Israel. But Israel is nervous because of the Arab Spring, and the relationship with Israel, with Egypt isn't as secure as it once was. So they're lashing out. And the Republican candidate there managed to turn this into a backlash against President Obama. And the Jewish community there is, as Pat said, very conservative, and there's also some economic anxiety. And so the White House and Democrats have lots of excuses. That seat is going to go away. It's going to be reapportioned. They didn't take it seriously. It's quirky, but nonetheless, it's a warning for what lies ahead.
And the UN will declare Palestine to be a state.
If it comes to a vote, most likely.
An observer state in the General
An
Assembly.
observer state,
Not a
but
member
still a
state.
state.
Not a member state.
Observer state means there's a state there.
Yeah.
Like the Vatican State is a state. Observer. James, what's your take on the 9th District in New York, the turn or win?
All right, listen, I think Israel was important, but I think Eleanor's right. There was an economic component to this. The economy's bad everywhere. Remember the Republicans also won in Nevada. And of that 8-point victory, I would say a good chunk of that is because of this terrible weak economy where 80% of the Americans think the economy is going off track over a cliff. So I think that played a huge role in addition to Israel.
Well, you mentioned Nevada. The GOP contender Mark Amadei beat Democrat Kate Marshall 58 to 36% by 22%, Pat. That makes the same point.
Yeah, and Karl Rove actually had an editorial this week where he argued that was the race that Democrats should be more worried about, because there were just a bunch of kind of weird local specific issues in the New York race that made that kind of a unique situation. But the Nevada race, that was a district that barely went to John McCain last time around, that Democrats really hoped would be competitive. And they were running a candidate that they thought was a really good candidate who was kind of running the Medicare playbook that had worked so well for them earlier, and it just didn't pan out for them
And
at all.
Nevada, along with Ohio, are really two great bellwethers right now. We talk a lot about Ohio, but it's really Nevada, too. If you look at that population, it ends up being a nice microcosm of the United States. And if Democrats are getting killed there, they're going to get killed everywhere.
And Nevada was one of those states that went for Obama, and that's right. The district was a dead even thing. I think Obama lost it by 80 votes, but he lost it by 22 points this time, John. What it means is Nevada is gone for Obama.
I think it's too early to say Nevada is gone, but that particular district, while Obama came close to winning it, when's the last time a Democrat had that district? It's really a traditionally Republican district. So
and 22 points is awful big.
Well, yeah.
Do you think that
a win is a win, a loss is a loss?
Ryan's plan, the Republicans' plan, you remember Ryan's to
plan?
voucherize what? Medicare?
Premium support system.
Premium support.
It's not really
but you think that, Nevada has an older population.
That didn't work.
That's what I mean.
Medicare did not work.
Oh, it did not work.
Well, the economy, as Peter said, the economy is taking these guys down everywhere.
Wasn't there a lot of Medicare advertising going on there in these races?
They tried in New York and it didn't work.
It's not the silver bullet, but you're going to hear more about it, especially as the Republicans talk more about cutting entitlements. People over 65 vote in great numbers. That's still a very potent issue.
Exit question: has President Obama lost the Jewish vote nationally? Pat Buchanan.
The president won the Jewish vote by 57 points the last time out in 2008. He will win it by about 33 this time. It'll be much closer, and he could lose Florida because I think Broward, Dade, Palm Beach County are going to be going the other way when Ed Koch is down there endorsing Mitt Romney. Maybe not Rick Perry.
Isn't that surprising that Florida would go that way?
Well, see, the Jewish vote's very important in Florida, which is a tight swing state, and it's right over there on the Atlantic coast.
The Jewish vote is important. Also, Medicare is important. So, and the question is the president going to lose the Jewish vote? That's a resounding no, but he's facing erosion in all his constituents.
You agree with Eleanor on that?
I think it is eroding. I think Patrick, the action is not going to be in New York. It's going to be in Florida, which really could be again one of the key states. And remember, despite all the Medicare and Social Security, Marco Rubio did just fine down there.
Yeah, but when you talk to pollsters who were looking at that New York race specifically, yes, support for Obama tanked among Jewish voters, but it tanked during the month of August. And really, the only thing that had happened previous to that, other than Ed Koch getting into the race and bringing up Israel, but the larger picture, it really, I think, was probably a reaction to the debt ceiling debacle, all of the bad economic news. I mean, in the same way that Obama's support really has been dropping even among other Democratic constituency, you talk to pollsters and they say, what happened with the Jewish vote in that New York district is more along the lines of what's just been happening nationally. It's not necessarily hinging on Israel.
The answer is the Jewish vote stays Democratic. Issue 2, take your best shot.
The drug company gave thousands of dollars in political donations to the governor, and this is just flat out wrong. The question is it about life or was it about millions of dollars and potentially billions for a drug company?
Republican presidential candidate and Minnesota Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann came out swinging. at fellow candidate and Texas Governor Rick Perry. Bachmann, during a GOP presidential debate on Monday, criticized the Texas governor for issuing a 2007 executive order requiring sixth-grade girls to be vaccinated for the sexually transmitted disease called human papillomavirus, HPV, which has been linked to cervical cancer in women and penile cancer in men. Bachmann accused Perry of issuing the executive order as a kickback to the pharmaceutical company that produced the vaccine, Merck. Bachmann one day later talked about a conversation she had with a mother whose daughter was vaccinated by the anti-HPV vaccine.
She told me that her little daughter took that vaccine, that injection, and she suffered from mental retardation thereafter. It can have very dangerous side effects.
Medical correspondent and MD Nancy Snyderman checked out the Merck medication.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Family Physicians, and the CDC all weighed in today disagreeing with Michelle Bachmann's view, saying that over 35 million doses of the HPV vaccine have been given with a tremendously good safety record. The reason that's important to know is that over 6 million young men and women will be infected with the HPV virus this year, and over 4,000 women will die of cervical cancer. It's important to remember that this is an anti-cancer vaccine, and the reason it's given to an 11 and 12-year-olds is that that's when the human body produces the best immune response that then will protect kids later when they become sexually active. You want this on board, and in fact it has been proven so successful that there is now a call to vaccinate young boys too. So from a safety track record, from an efficacy track record, and frankly from a lot of different medical records today, a lot of august bodies, they've all said this is a very good and safe vaccine.
Question: did Bachmann get off message when she strayed into the question of HPV vaccine safety record? Right. And does this completely clear Perry from any charges against him? Doesn't Perry now look good?
Well, she should have left it at crony capitalism, tying this mandatory injection to contributions he's gotten from Merck, where his former chief of staff is the lobbyist. She should have left it at that. Venturing into the health area, I commend you for running Nancy Snyderman's comments in full, because this is a health issue, and Governor Perry should be commended for his efforts. I guess it failed, but his efforts to try to, get this into the population. And you do have Art Kaplan, who is a noted ethicist, pledging to donate $10,000, I think it is, to the Bachmann campaign or something, if she can produce this woman or some evidence to back up the claim that she made, which she cannot. And it was tapping into the fear that people have about autism and injections.
Was this dirty politics?
It was rough. She was very tough and went after him. I think.
What impact is this going to have on Bachmann's candidacy?
Well, on Bachmann's candidacy, she wants to revive her candidacy, and she's getting this battle with Perry. But Perry's been bled a little bit, John, because this looks like to the Christian community, what's he doing? Trumping the rights of parents and things. What he should have done here was first take it to the legislature, and frankly, secondly, tell parents you got to get your permission before we do it, and he would be just fine, because I think overall it's a good program. But you got to give parents the ability to say no.
There is in the statute, I guess it is, there is an opt-out provision.
Right.
You don't have to have it done, but he wants to bring the full weight of the government behind the idea of having it done.
They should have an opt-in provision. They should have had an opt-in provision.
I don't think you need an opt-in.
Yes, you do. I think you don't do anything to kids like that unless the parents...
Well, why put it in if it's going to be opt-in?
Because
it's redundant.
There's too many parents.
You're in.
It's available.
You make it available, and that's why this issue will continue. Remember, the audience here with
That's
Iowa,
not bringing the strength of the government behind the view that this is going to prevent a lot of sickness.
Well, I'm in favor of the government saying this is a terrific program. What you did on Snyderman is excellent.
I want my government to go a little bit further than that. I want my government to say, what is the collective view of this government? And the legislature, as he said afterwards, he said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. The legislature should have done it. You can.
He shouldn't have done it
by
executive order.
You can cause people to be vaccinated.
But he shouldn't have done it like a dictator. He should have gone to the legislature.
Well, he couldn't get it through the legislature. legislature probably, which is why he did it the way he did it. And we know from experience on an issue like this, if you have an opt-in, too many parents do not avail themselves of it because they're busy and so forth.
No, I just was going to say, that the irony of all this was that Bachmann's attack at the debate was actually the most effective attack, I thought, launched at Perry that night. And she did completely step all over whatever momentum she might have gained from that, because the crony capitalism issue is real and is something that Perry is vulnerable on. I think people who were watching Perry...
You mean Merck?
Yes, the fact that Perry, nobody thinks that Perry would have issued that executive order if his former chief of staff hadn't been a lobbyist for Merck.
Do you think lobbying is a new phenomenon?
No, it absolutely, nobody is even suggesting that something, criminal or even that it in any way isn't just the way business happens, but that is not the image that Perry wants to project in this race. That's not an image that's going to endear him to voters right now who are just sick of the way politics, political
What's going to be the bigger of the two emphases out of this race? That Perry was right in saying what he said about the chemical, or that she was, or that Merck should not. He should have had no trucking with Merck.
I think she took the wins out of that attack by taking it that far.
Right. He's been hurt to a degree.
Pharmaceutical companies are supposed to go to doctors and say, "This is what I have available." They do that routinely.
Right.
They try to sell the doctors on the merits of their heavily costed research.
Right, but again,
sometimes lobbyists are right, and if Perry was convinced by this lobbyist who happened to be his chief of staff, it still was the right decision to go forward.
But you can see from the way Perry
said he would have done it differently.
You can see from the way Perry handled himself that he was stung by this.
Issue 3,
put on the defensive.
Solyndra kaput.
The true engine of economic growth will always be companies like Solyndra.
That was May 2010, 16 months ago. President Obama visited Solyndra, a green energy California-based company that makes solar panels. The panels convert the sun's rays into electricity. The president paid a visit to Solyndra to show that green is not only good, but green brings in the green. It's profitable for the government. The president was so proud of Solyndra that he guaranteed a loan of more than $500 million, $535 million for Solyndra. But last week, Solyndra folded, bankruptcy. But only after Solyndra spent $519 million of its $535 million federal loan money. Analysts point out that Solyndra was suspect from the start and should have never been subsidized by the president's budget. A specialty analyst in solar energy named Peter Lynch says this about Solyndra's business model. Quote, "It was an insane business model. The numbers just don't work, and they never did."
Question, did the White House vet the loan for Solyndra? Is this a serious political black eye, James Pithakoukas?
I think it is. Remember, people, they look back at that original $800 billion stimulus, and it kind of looks like it didn't create very many jobs. And people are like, how can we spend all that money and not create jobs? Why? Because a lot of it was going to companies like Solyndra, which are on very shaky footing. And even with the $500 million, they still went belly up, just as many people predicted by September of 2011. In fact, all this energy subsidy, which has been about $60 billion, has only created a few thousand jobs. Why hasn't the stimulus created jobs? Now we know why.
John, they didn't do due diligence on this thing. They rushed it through for political reasons. The phrase crony capitalism, that's exactly what this is. And this is a real black eye, frankly, for the green movement. What was it Eric Hoffer said? Every great cause eventually becomes a business and then degenerates into a racket.
Well, they blew it on this one, clearly. But I think the vetting was done at the bureaucratic level by career people. And the White House was pushing because they wanted to get this photo op, which was a mistake, but I don't think there's any twisting of requirements or anything like that. Some loan guarantees are risky. This one failed. The bigger problem the bigger problem is what you cite, and that is it gives more fodder to the Republican criticism. You spent all this money and you haven't created any jobs or not enough jobs.
And along those lines, I think the bigger problem, there was all this attention paid to the fact that they wanted this photo op with Biden, so they were kind of urging them along to try to make the loan loan approval. But I think the bigger problem is the larger pressure actually to create jobs, was probably, something that was more of a factor in the sense that, they had this money going through and they wanted to see jobs created fast.
Well,
And
green
so
jobs,
that's
green
a factor
jobs
in all of these.
Green jobs
loans.
have been oversold, but it's still the right thing to do. It's a huge global industry, clean energy in the future, and if we want to get and we want to be leaders in that industry, you got to start somewhere.
The only way all those companies would work is if Obama would have got his way and got this huge cap and trade program to raise the cost of fossil. Without that, the economics for these firms doesn't work, and it didn't work. It with Solyndra, it's not working for a lot of these other ones.
The rap has to rest on the Office of Management and Budget, the fabulous OMB, which is the most powerful part of the White House structure. And it's more powerful than the regulatory agency. They were told to rush it. They were saying we have to do due diligence on this.
Right.
They were told to rush it because Obama loves green energy. He's going to be there. He's going to give a talk, and he wants to make sure that
it's going to look
instead
like,
of that, it's totally rebounded.
It's going to look like political pressure to get the photo op for
Yes.
Biden, get the jobs
Yes.
out, and they overdid it, and now you got a scandal. John, $500 million is
$500
an
million.
enormous loss. Of
$500
money.
million.
Well, it's not as much political pressure as a former White House exerted in order to be able to go to war in Iraq.
Issue 4, tough love.
I sent Congress the American Jobs Act. This is it right here. It's pretty thick. This is a plan that does two things. It puts people back to work, and it puts more money in the pockets of working Americans.
President Obama took his jobs plan this week to 2 states, Ohio and North Carolina. The tab on Obama jobs is $447 billion. That's B as in boy, billion. Ohio has an unemployment rate today of 9%. North Carolina has an unemployment rate today of 10.1%. Both Ohio and North Carolina are key Democratic primary states. On the national scene, the president's approval rating now stands at 40% positive, 52% negative. Practically the same as Ohio and North Carolina. Democratic Party veteran strategist Robert Zimmerman sees danger ahead. Quote, "The alarms have already gone off in the Democratic grassroots. If the Obama administration hasn't heard them, they should check the wiring of their alarm system," unquote. In the West, the influential 13-term Oregon Democratic Congressman Peter DeFazio echoes the Northeast, the Southeast, and Central U.S. Quote, "In my district, the enthusiasm for him has mostly evaporated. There is tremendous discontent with his direction," unquote.
Another prominent Democrat agrees.
Should President Obama have a challenge? I say he should. I think it would make him a better president if he received a Democratic a challenge in a Democratic primary.
Question. The call for a presidential primary, is that now the common view of the graybeards or the influentials in the Democratic Party? Liz.
Not unless they want him to lose. I mean, I think we'd be getting into Jimmy Carter territory at that point, and that is not where Obama wants to be. There's no question that he is in trouble right now. However, as his campaign has pointed out, he still is winning in head-to-head matchups against every single Republican candidate out there, outside of the margin of error. And in a way, when you look at all the economic data, everything that's been going on, it's actually remarkable that he's doing as well as he is. And so I think, although Democrats are starting to panic in certain circles, Obama still has some cards left to play.
Well, the panic is predictable because it's 9.1% unemployment and the president clearly is vulnerable. That was Dennis Kucinich, whose picture you went up. He did run the last 2 cycles, and he's not going to enter the primary. Any Democrat who waged a primary fight against this president at this point would be charged with exactly what you're saying, that they would be undermining his chances for re-election. So forget a primary challenge. It's not going to happen.
Had 9 lives. He did run for the U.S. presidency in the last 2.
Yeah, he's not doing it this time.
John, he's not doing it this time.
No.
Furthermore, he has to move out of where he is. Am I correct in that?
He's moved
he's
into
going
a district.
into the state of Washington?
No, he's dropped that. He's been moved into a district with Marcy Kaptur. It's that Lake Erie district, and it's going to be very tough for Dennis Kucinich to win that because she is a huge hugely popular, populist conservative Democrat.
What's the group opinion on Kucinich?
I like Kucinich personally. I think he's a principled guy. I liked him ever since he was a young man.
You think he's?
He was a radical man.
You think he's an iconoclast?
Well, I think he's a man of the left, but he's a principled man of the left.
I like.
He calls the shots as he sees them.
Yeah, I like him too. He's a friend.
Predictions, Pat.
Palestinians will force President Obama to veto their membership in the United Nations, in the Security Council, and then they will go to the General Assembly where they will get observer status with 150 plus votes.
Hello.
Senate race next year between Elizabeth Warren and Scott Brown will be the marquee race, and each side will turn out their base, but the fight will be over moderates and independents, and which of them can talk the talk for that middle-of-the-road voter on economic issues.
You're talking Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, a lot of middle-class voters, a lot of Irish Catholics.
Right. James.
A European financial crisis kicked off by a Greek debt default will push the U.S. back into recession.
Liz.
The president's jobs bill is never brought up for a vote in the House.
Peter King, Republican congressman from New York, will announce that he will run for the U.S. Senate in 2012. Bye-bye.
This is The Network, a living, breathing intelligence that's helping business rethink how to do business. In here, inventory can be taught to learn. In here, machines have a voice. In here, medical history follows you, even when you're away from home. It's the AT&T Network, a network of possibilities, creating and integrating solutions, helping business and the world work. Rethink Possible.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
Smart global investing requires expertise from the ground up. With insights from local experts across the world, we have a unique perspective on global investing. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.